I'd like to call a special council meeting to order, December 19, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dungy. Dr. Greenberg. Here. Mr. Rosencrantz.
Here.
Sohar. Here. Mrs. Walker. Here. President Cahill.
Here.
6 present.
6 present, we have a quorum. We'll go right into the body of the meeting. The first order of business is a statement from the administration.
Thank you, Council. First of all, I'd like to thank Council for convening on a special meeting here the week before Christmas. I'd like to thank the public for coming out. We would not be here tonight if it was not important that we meet here. We have that obligation to provide emergency services. Public safety is our #1 priority as administration, as a council, but we also have that obligation to operate under the laws that govern the way a township operates when it comes to township and taxpayer dollars. So that's why we're here tonight. And I'm going to pass over to Mr. Shah. We have the Chief of Police. We have some other people that are here that are going to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur what Mayor has said. I think this is an important decision for the township. So I'm thankful for everybody to be here. And I want to thank Chief Walker, Captain Fritz, Patrolman Herb Doctors, and our QPA, Beth Cunningham, for putting a lot of efforts in putting together the bid specification that was sent out and reviewing and making a recommendation. I'm going to go over a quick presentation on the bid. And I want to, Captain Fries, you want to join me? Is he here? He's not come in yet. I'm going to start, and hopefully they'll join me.
Do you want someone to get them? I'll go.
So the bids went out. The bids went out about 2 weeks back, 3 weeks back. It was received by the township, and it was obviously a public bid. The bid specification were available online for people to be able to download and review the bid specifications. So it was an open bid, so I just want to make sure that there is, that everybody's aware of that. The bids were open, obviously, in public by township clerks and our QPA, Beth Cunningham. And I believe, Stella, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the people that submitted the bids were present at the meeting.
They
and
were.
they reviewed the bids.
And they had a chance to review any bid they wanted to review.
Okay, so I think we have, and I'm sure that our attorney, Mark, will, go over any legal issue with the bid specifications or the process, but I think we believe that we have a proper process followed. So the bids, there were 4 bids received. The Hackensack Meridian Health Alert Ambulance was one. Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital Mobile Health Services was a second bidder. New Jersey Mobile Health Care was a third bidder, and Old Bridge Township Emergency Medical Services. And obviously, as you can see, the bids were the Hackensack, Robert Wood Johnson, and New Jersey Mobile Care Unit has not requested any compensations or subsidy from the township to perform the services. There were a number of exceptions by OB-TEMS. There were 8 exceptions by OB-TEMS on the bid. There were 1 exception by the Robert Wood Johnson. Under the New Jersey procurement law, the township must award the bids to the lowest responsible bidder. We believe we have all 4 bidders are responsible, but the lowest responsible bidders are Hackensack Meridian Health Alert Ambulance, Robert Wood Johnson, University Hospital, Mobile Health Services, and New Jersey Mobile Healthcare. Since we have 3 bidders with a 0, the statute NJSA 4811-61D quotes, when 2 or more responds to a request of contracting agent offers equal price and are the lowest responsible bids or proposals, the contracting unit may award the contract to the vendor who responds in discretion of the contracting unit is the most advantageous price and other factors considered. Township recommends awarding the contract to Hackensack Meridian Health Alert Ambulance. Why Alert Ambulance? Alert Ambulance is a partner of Hackensack Meridian Hospital located in Old Bridge Township. Alert Ambulance for basic support are located in the hospital in Old Bridge, making additional ambulances available beyond the 3 ambulances required under the contract, if needed. About Alert Ambulance is 50% owned by Hackensack Meridian Hospital located in Old Bridge. Alert Ambulance has annual revenue of $25 million with a 350 employee and 50 ambulances. Alert Ambulance currently serves the city of Perth Amboy, Lakewood Township, and Brick Township. I believe they're the primary provider for Perth Amboy. They're a backup provider for Lakewood Township and Brick Township. They also serves Hackensack Meridian Health, Raritan Bay, and Jersey Shore hospitals. Township Police Department did the reference checks, and all reference from all the towns has been satisfied with Alert Ambulance services. What Alert Ambulance brings to Old Bridge? Alert Ambulance has a fleet of over 50 vehicles and 4 full-time mechanics to service the vehicles. In addition, they would be willing to negotiate a fair rent with a volunteer first aid for hosting ambulances to be placed at different parts of the town for quick response. So there is potential revenue for our volunteer squad. Alert Ambulance will hire all OB-TEMS part-time or on-call employees subject to qualification criteria of Alert Ambulance. Alert Ambulance will hire up to 10 or more OB-TEMS full-time employees with benefits subject to qualification and criteria of Alert Ambulance. From my understanding, OB-TEMS does not have any full-time employee. They're all on-call or part-time employees. The major criteria for hiring employees by Alert Ambulance is clean driving records, clean criminal background, employee must not be listed on OIG debarred list, and must pass drug tests. Those are the basic criteria for hiring. OB-TEMS employee can get employment with Alert. Citizen transport to hospital. Alert Ambulance has agreed to transport the patients to their choice of hospital or the best equipped hospital subject to medical condition. This was one of the concerns that was expressed to me, and we verified that none of the ambulance services will dictate where a patient is going to be taken to which hospital. It's a patient's choice unless there is a serious medical condition that requires to take them to a different location. Alert Ambulance will provide basic life support, and Robert Wood Johnson will provide advanced life support. This is the same arrangement as currently practiced by OB-TEMS and Robert Wood Johnson's. So the advanced life support process is not changing. Alert has a contractual agreement with Robert Wood Johnson's to provide that services. EMS services billing for Old Bridge residents. All EMS providers must comply with the same billing practice mandated by state and federal regulation. Section 5.2 of the Township Bid Specification covers the contractor responsibility for billing and collections. When we have reviewed many towns' bid, almost all town operates in this, where they have a third-party provider operates in the same manners. We have collected several bid specification for various towns, reviewed them, and we took the, information that we need to put together the township specification. So I don't think, there were some questions that were raised by, council members, but we have reviewed with the township attorney, and our bid specifications are legal. We don't believe there's a violation of the law. And the billing practice has to be conforming by all EMS providers, regardless of whether they're township services provided by township or the third party. There was also a question, I think last meeting, there was a question came about fireman rehabilitation. Fireman rehabilitation is fully covered under the contract, under the bid specification, section 2.3, hours of services requirement. It was on page 44. And if the language reads, the contractor shall also be responsible for filing in when needed on evening and weekends for volunteer and non-volunteer first aid squads, providing standby emergency medical services within the township for fire, rehabilitation services for firefighters, flooding, hazardous emergency calls, community events, school, sponsored sporting events and other events, and local youth and nonprofit organization, sporting and other events. Alert ambulance EMS task force will be available 24/7, 365 in case volunteers are not available to provide services. So they'll cover those gap hours. Alert Ambulance will offer training to Old Bridge volunteer EMS members, CEU classes at the volunteer squad facility in Old Bridge. Alert Ambulance also has agreed to assist all squads in recruitment of volunteers, as one of the concerns that volunteers have expressed to the township over a number of years now. The last slide, it shows, there are questions why we need to go out for bids. And I think this slide summarizes that. I think the facts are that last 3 or 4 years, township has been working with OB-TEMS because they have been expressing difficulty meeting payrolls. They have not been able to reimburse township for gasoline. So starting 2013, the township has been providing gasoline at no charge to the OB-TEMS. In 2015, there was a lease agreement made with OB-TEMS to purchase 2 ambulances at a cost of $300,000. And there was a payout. And there is lease agreement signed by OB-TEMS as well as township. And to date, they have not been able to make the full payment. They have not made any payment in 2015. They have not made $26,000 in 2016, and we believe 2017 is going to end with another $26,000 shortfall in payments. And when we discussed these issues with the OB-TEMS, we are told that they have, they've been very stressing out with trying to meet the payroll, and they don't have funds to pay us. They also have 2 ambulances on the loan, but I'm pretty sure that they're with the bank, but I'm pretty sure they're making those payments, but they have not been able to make payments to the township. And the reason is that they have to do additional hours, and that's their indications, and that they have very difficult time meeting payroll. And so after review the information from that, and township has been working since 2014, there are meetings held, and committee members are aware of it. Everybody has participated in those meetings. There are several meetings held over the last 3 years. There were some agreements, but it just didn't follow through. Township tried to put the standards of services for volunteers. It wasn't agreed on. And so if you look at it, the cost of the OB temps is growing. And the bid further demonstrate that their bid was $175,000. So they're going from $128,000 in 2017 to $175,000. Now, township has an obligation to make sure that we provide safety and services to the residents and to the taxpayer at the lowest possible cost. And at the rate the amount is going up, we are now in excess of any statutory limits, even if we were to consider. OB Temps is not a volunteer, it's a paid ambulance services. They're not a non-volunteer services. Township has always and has provided each squad. We have 5 volunteer ambulance squads. Each one gets $45,000 annually from the township. This is in addition to that, the $45,000 paid to all the volunteer squads. So all our efforts is to help volunteers. Nothing in the bid states that affects the volunteer services, volunteer squad. There is no impact. In fact, Alert has indicated that they will provide and enhance, additional funding to the volunteer squads. So that is why we have recommended township to take this, we went out for bid because we had to. We were exceeding any legal threshold in it, so we felt that we have to do these things under the law. So, based on the information, we recommend council to pass a resolution to award the contract to Alert Ambulance. I think Captain Freed's chief is here. I don't know, you want to add to that? I think they have done thorough evaluation for the specifications, and they are very comfortable that they believe that, safety of the residents is covered in our bid specification.
Mr. Shah, I'd just like to address the council for, I don't know if Mr. Roselli, you want to go, you want to make some statements? I think Mr. Shah covered the financial obligation the town has and its fiduciary obligation to, when we're using taxpayer dollars for a paid service, we have limitations. We can't just keep writing checks. And I think that's what came to over the years. We were very concerned what was going on. We were using taxpayer money. And now with this service, it had to go out to bid, and the bids speak for themselves. So, Mr. Roselli, and if you want to make some statements, and the chief and I, Captain Fritz, we'll go over the chief's memo, but I believe the council has in front of him.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, some of the additional, I think, comments that Mr. Shaw was making relative to Alert's, I guess, program with the volunteers. There was a provision in the specification that indicated that basically the volunteers would not be cut out and be included as part of it. But those factors that were referenced were not part of the required response. Basically, and when you read the specifications themselves, they had certain conditions and requirements, but those things with respect to what they're going to do with the volunteers, that's not part of it, and the selection necessarily isn't based upon that either. I think, again, this is a bid. There's 2 different ways you potentially can go out for EMS services. This was a sealed bid, and in that instance, what the law requires is that municipalities select and award a contract based upon the lowest responsible bidder. So then, obviously, in that, cost becomes the dominant factor. And then the other thing you have to look at is what is responsible. And with responsible means, are the bids responsive? And one of the things that you look at is that have all the bidders submitted the, number one, you look to see if they submitted all the necessary documentation. Actually, for the most part, everyone had, except Robert Wood Johnson didn't completely submit all its documents, nor did New Jersey Mobile Healthcare. There are certain documents in the specs that were not fully completed. So in that regard, that's one of the things you look at as not being a responsive bidder, which leads to whether or not they are responsible. But again, specifications were written, and there's a question of, you're supposed to encourage open competitive bidding. And to the extent that you have 4 responses, allows, I think, is indication that the bid specifications themselves were not preclusive, that you had 4 responses, 3 of them which provided a zero subsidy. So then I think some people may have a question, well, what's zero subsidy? You know, and there's this, as I've learned over the years going back, there's a dichotomy between ambulance services being provided by a municipality, and then whether when it owns and operates the ambulance operations, and when it's done through a third party. And I think in that regard, there's a confusion and there's issues with respect to billing. And everyone seems to focus on billing, and including there was issues raised as to, number one, is a zero subsidy permissible? And I know that the administration had conversations with the respondents with respect to the zero subsidy, and it's actually pretty common throughout the state that these ambulance providers are providing a zero subsidy. And the bid specifications were written to ask these providers, what subsidy are you requesting from the town? Meaning that how much money you're asking the town to pay you to, in essence, to cover what may be, which typically people look at if there's a difference because of their inability to collect on some of the bills and their billing practices. The specifications as written, and this was made clear, I think, to especially with Alert, but the ambulance providers are expected and be required to bill in accordance with what's allowed and permissible under the law. I think one of the things is that if you're a municipally owned and operated ambulance service, you're allowed to waive co-pays and you're allowed to waive deductibles, meaning that you know, everyone has insurance coverage. So if I go out there and then you get a bill, you're going to get a deductible. The ambulance company might get a certain amount, then the deductible is not covered, or co-pay is not covered. If it's a municipally owned and operated, which we don't have, the law allows, or OIG even has regulations that says the municipalities can waive that provision. But if you're a third party that's not municipally owned and operated, you are not allowed to, or the township can't mandate that provider waive that. And there's a question in the spec that talks about out-of-pocket costs, that the provider will not seek to collect the out-of-pocket costs. We made it clear that the out-of-pocket costs are not intended, nor are they relating to co-pays or deductibles. Each ambulance provider would, to the extent that they have a patient, it's up to that provider to bill the patient, and then to the extent that an individual cannot pay a deductible or a copay, they have to evaluate that, and there's a process on the patient of their ability to pay. But we have not told, nor are we telling these providers not to bill for that. That is the billing practice they'll be expected to follow under the federal and state guidelines. And then I think there was a question raised relative, well, I know there was a advisory opinion that was issued by the Office of Inspector General, which is a government oversight, and there was an inquiry that was made by a ambulance provider for an advisory opinion. And the question in that particular opinion was, the provider was actually receiving monies from the municipality, and they don't identify the municipality as not allowed, nor the provider. And so the question was the fact that the town was providing that payment, much like it would be a situation where with, you know, the OB-TEMS bid, where the town's providing that money, that subsidy, is that a violation of what's referred to the anti-kickback statute? And so what in that particular instance, what the OIG said, that given those fact pattern that they were provided and giving their understanding of the situation, the fact that the town was using government tax dollars to provide that ambulance provider to cover their subsidy, they found it didn't violate the statute, because the fact that they said that the ambulance provider, or the municipality ambulance provider said that about equaled what the difference was, the fact that they couldn't collect those co-pays and deductibles. And the OIG ruled in that instance that that's okay. You can make that negotiation, you're allowed to do that, so that payment to the township, by the township to the provider, is permissible. But again, that's not the situation we have here with at least 3 of the bidders. There is no subsidy payment going that way. But there's nothing that indicates the fact that providers are required to accept the subsidy. And again, there's nothing in our bid specification that says that they are not or cannot bill nor seek to collect the co-pays or deductibles, because that's not permissible. And actually, each of the providers that the town talked to recognize that and recognize their requirement to file those billing practices. So the resolution then, and as Himanshu had noted, that you had 3 bidders who had 0 subsidies. So in that instance, the prices are all the same. So then, again, in reviewing the bid, as I said, New Jersey Mobile Healthcare, they were not fully responsive, meaning that they had certain responses that one of their documents wasn't signed, a couple of them weren't provided. And so then you go to Robert Wood Johnson and Alert Ambulance Service, who were also $0 subsidies, and there was distinctions made there. And again, the first thing I would say that is Alert Ambulance, actually, they submitted all their documents, and I think there was one document that Robert Wood Johnson did not submit. And then in addition, there was analysis performed by the chief in conjunction with the captain as to looking at all things equal, why is it that Alert would be a better choice for Old Bridge? So that has to be spelled out in the resolution, and I'll segue to the chief next. He can explain that. But those factors, the factors that distinguish Alert from Robert Wood and New Jersey Mobile Health, are also included in the resolution, and they're spelled out because you have to under the law.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Chief? Council, you've heard why we've had to do this. Mr. Roselli has confirmed we've done it legally. Now we're going to explain. We had 3 bidders. The chief ultimately had to make a decision. Why Alert? You have a copy of his memo. I believe it goes into detail on why I concur with the chief's decision. Chief, if you want to. Here you go.
Our task as a police department was determined, of the 2 front runners anyway, it was Robert Wood and Alert. And the 2 things, well, actually the main thing we care about, of course, is public safety, right? We know that when that bell rings, the guy's got to be there. We understand that. So when we compared the 2, Alert and Robert Wood, our number 1 concern was the response time. Now, our running average over the last couple of months anyway is between 6 and 7 minutes of response time. Alert was able to commit to the 6-minute response time as compared to Robert Wood. They couldn't commit. They were around 10 minutes, I believe. Okay? So 4 minutes is a long time. Our other concern was the ability of whatever provider you choose to backfill if we have a major event, all right? And we're all familiar with what I'm talking about. An event would occupy 2 or 3 ambulances and we're wiped out. So we want to be able to backfill, and we want to be able to have a seamless transition so that the other 65,000 people in town are still being served and prepared to go. And basically that's it. It's, with Alert's resources and their affiliation with Old Bridge Hospital here on Ferry Road, Hackensack Meridian, their equipment is there, their people are there, and it would be a seamless transition. And those are the 2 major things right there. Anything more than that, I could take some questions, but that's it.
Any questions for the chief from the council before we go to the public piece? Dr. Greenberg?
So basically, our response time has been 6 minutes, and we've,
You know, off the top of my head, the number we came up with was like 6.71 or 6.7 minutes with as far back as we went. And I believe we went back November and October, November.
and we've always had coverage, no problem.
Had coverage, we never had a problem, right. But that's why we were looking at the 6-minute mark, because that's what we're used to and that's what works for us. You know, we had this discussion, a perfect response time would be 30 seconds. But if that's what the running average is, then that's what we got to go by.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief?
I have a question. What would be the penalty towards Alert if they don't respond in 6 minutes? They guarantee it, and you know what happens if they can't?
Well, it's guaranteed. Well, I don't know how they can guarantee it. I don't know if anything's guaranteed. I trust that with the equipment that they have, their organization, and their commitment to their business that they're going to do everything they can to get there. They have trained professionals who work for them also. I don't know if there's a guarantee, if there's a penalty, if they get there in 8 minutes. There are traffic conditions, there could be weather conditions, things happen. So I don't know about a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like anything else, when you do a contract, you incorporate the bid specs and proposal. And, you know, if it becomes a problem, it becomes a default under the contract and you would terminate. I think it's
I
like
would
any-
assume additional resources would have to be put in
Right.
place to maintain a fourth ambulance be required.
To ensure that
to
they do
maintain.
that.
And Chief, maybe you can explain how the 6 minutes is a 90% average based on how they calculate that 6-minute, Captain Fritz.
Hold on 1 second, Chief.
Just want to check.
Mary, is the chief's mic on? It is? Yeah, okay.
How's this?
Yeah,
better.
great. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Councilman. Well, okay. We went back October, November, and we took the data that we had from our dispatcher and our records, and we come up with 6-point-something minutes. I can get that exact number for you, but our requirement, what we were looking for is 6 minutes. It was below what our actual average was. So that's it.
Questions for the chief? Okay.
Keep in mind, let me just say one more thing.
Yep.
You can go back a week, you're not going to get a real number, right? You could be lucky, and you could be right around the corner and get there in 2 minutes, and then you could be unlucky and be 9 minutes away. And it's not a real average, okay? So we went back, I don't know how many calls, but we went back 2 months, and that was our number, so.
Okay. Anybody else want to go before we go? Oh, sorry.
I was
Mrs. Walker.
gonna- Now, are they going to put their ambulances all around town? Because as we know, it's a very large town.
Sure, they'll do just the same thing that volunteers do and OB Thames does. They'll be strategically placed throughout the town, sure. Mhm.
Mrs. Dungy?
From what I'm understanding, is it the concern more finance than their ability to service the community?
Our concern is their ability to serve the community.
Not
You can't-
finance?
No, it's not mine. No, we
Okay.
don't, I don't care about that.
Well, the finance will obviously play a role. I mean, if some point they cannot operate, the concern we have is that this demand, as you can see in the chart, clearly defines that the request for additional funding has been growing. Earlier this year, the committee has been meeting. There's a council members on the committee, administrations, police, and we have met with the members of OB Thames on several occasions. And they have clearly indicated to us that they're in distress. They can't make the payroll. That's why they're not paying they can't pay the ambulance lease payments. If this is not it's not what we said. If they were making payments and we were at $40,000 contribution that we've been doing for years, we would not be here. We would not have this discussion. So, when they have continue to grow, and at some point, we're not going to be able to continue to grow these payments because township has an obligation. They have a budget limitations. You're operating at 2% cap. So you can't continue to grow this amount and not pay attention to it, that this is affecting our budgets, our ability to operate. And we have an obligation. At what point? Now we're in excess of the statutory limits. So, we have to take these steps. And that adds to the possibility of potential problem of not being able to service.
Excuse me,
please, Mr.
I just want to make something very clear to everybody, that the police department did not look at the finances. We care about the public safety, okay? We can't, over the last several weeks, or last couple weeks anyway, if I had a nickel every time I heard public safety, or can you put a price on life? No. There is no answer to that, okay? And I understand the financial responsibility the town has. That's for someone else to explain, not me, all right? I care about the public safety, response time, So that's where we're coming from. So I didn't want there to be any confusion where I said, I don't care about money, because I don't. And not that I want to remind anybody, but I think Councilman Rosencrantz reminds everybody of the money that the police department spends on overtime, and whatever it takes, is my answer. Want to put a price on life? I could put a price on it, whatever you have. Okay? So that's where the police department's coming from.
Mrs. Dungy, you still have the floor. I think you answered.
No, he
Oh,
answered.
okay. Mrs. Walker, you had another follow-up? Did you have a hand up?
Is this from Mr. Shaw? Can you tell me what the state statute allows us to pay a year?
Well, statute allows that, volunteer EMS service providers, the township has an ability to pay up to $70,000 under the statute. Once it pays additional, they can pay additional $35,000 for based on the needs. At that point, the provider has to submit an audited financial statements from that point on. So those are the statutory limitation. Now, it's an interesting issue here is that OB-TEMS is not a volunteer services, it's paid services. So there is a distinction. I think we have tried, and if you recall, about 3 years back, we kind of passed a memorandum of understanding provided services. In those days, we were paying them up to $40,000. There was an annual contribution of $40,000. So, that has obviously grown, and now we have an exceeded limitation. Now, the history, if you look at the history, for almost 20 years, OB-TEMS did exactly what we're doing. The OB-TEMS, in fact, I 95 somewhere time, and I was here, and the township administrator, Jack Coughlin, and Mayor Cannon's time was discussed and created this OB-TEMS, which is a membership of each volunteer squad are involved, to negotiate and contract third-party providers. And that operation, that was the process, and township provided the subsidy to basically OB-TEMS, which then they provided that subsidy to the third-party provider.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes. In the bid, it says that they would hire 10 or more Old Bridge Thames employees, they're full-time, but as you said, there are no full-time Old Bridge Thames. Would they be willing to hire some Old Bridge Thames people as full-time?
It's not in the bid specification, we can't require that. That was after the bid specification, we went in a question and answers, and they have, agreed to some of the things that we wanted to help, because there is a concern about the employment issue. And we thought that they had, OB-TEMS had full-time employees, so that's what we had answered. They said they would hire, they have a need for more employees. They would hire full-time employees if any of the volunteer squad or OB-TEMS employee are interested in full-time employment. Obviously, they have to go through their employment process. But yes, they have indicated that they would be, even if they are part-time and they want to apply for full-time, they would accept those, employees.
Mrs. Dungy?
I also noticed that you referred to the criteria. Would the criteria by alert be, for example, more than they probably could meet?
I think you have to be, I'm gonna caution everybody. The fact is that what alert may or may not do, you can't make your determination based upon that. It's not part of the specification. You have a specification that indicates this is what you have to meet, and that analysis was done. The fact that, alert has indicated this is something they may do, but that's not included in the spec. The important part is the fact that, there was a need, the town went out to bid, the response was provided, and you have to do it on that basis. The only requirement in the specification is that whoever the provider is that they agree to work with the volunteers and non-volunteer squads in Old Bridge, and that's what they'll have to do. So you can't go down that road with respect to the hiring of these other individuals, because that's not a requirement in the specifications. I guess that there may have been some concerns about people who, with OB-10s who work there, but again, that's not in the specification, and that's not a criteria upon which the contract's being awarded. So just caution.
The issue is that whether the alert provides, better services, long-term safety, security issue about the companies. Yes, we believe, and I think you have a memo from Chief giving you detailed analysis of his evaluations, and you heard Chief says about safety, security. He feels that alert will provide those services.
Again, the other thing you have to remember is that the township's in a situation where they were providing these voluntary payments under NJSA 40:5-2, which allows up to $70,000, and then allows for an additional up to $35,000 if certain requirements have been met. The town's already on total paying, what's the total payments on an annual basis?
Well, in 2016, the net amount is $112,000. In 2017, $128,000. When you account for the cost of, the gasoline cost and additional contribution we did, and then they have not been able to make payments for the lease.
So what the danger becomes, and I know people talking about, not necessarily, talking about put a price on health. Agreed. But you can't also violate the law. So you have a situation where if you look at that provision, the town cannot be in a position where they're at a point where they can't meet that requirement. They can no longer give any more money to OB-10s. OB-10s has apparently indicated they need more money, so there is no way under this statute that they can do that. And additionally, in order for them to receive the additional $35,000, they're required, whoever receives the money, they're required to provide an audit performed by a certified public accountant or registered municipal accountant of their financial records for that current year that's certified to the governing body. And we haven't received the certified audits, right? So again, and as these issues come up, and the mayor and Amanch was talking to me, we're being put in a situation where the town's technically at this point afoul of this statute, because we are not getting what we need or what's required, and you cannot continue. So you're in a situation where, okay, you're continuing to put the money out, but there's also another alternative that many municipalities take advantage of, and that's to go out to bid. And we're almost a situation where the town was put in that position. It was thrust upon them, and we have to respond. I think any good government, anybody who has good government, you try to be proactive. And as you can see, I participated in many discussions with the different squads. When Mr. Marion was here, and there was efforts made to try to help those squads and meetings after meetings after meetings for that. But now the town's in a situation where they're running afoul of the law. Well, I'm not going to allow that. You can blame me if you want, but it's not going to happen. Because if I'm the township attorney, I'm not going to say, yeah, it's okay to violate the law. So, you can't lose sight of that either.
Questions? Anybody who hasn't asked? Dr. Greenberg, and then back. Oh, you have it? Oh, sure, okay.
I just had a question for the attorney. As you know, a lot of people have been calling us all week with concerns. So this is one concern someone had called me with. Can Alert offer training to the volunteers, or does it violate a federal law because they get Medicare?
Can Alert offer training to the volunteers?
Yes.
I
know they're going to. I just said, can they do it, or does it violate
Well, look, that's
law?
why my point is part of the award of this bid is not dependent upon that at all. And that's not the basis upon which it's being awarded. as an organization, Alert's a separate organization. If Alert takes the step that they want to assist these volunteer squads and provide them training, that's on them. We're not requiring it. We're not asking them to do it. It's not in the specification, and it's not a basis upon which we would award a contract to anybody.
Dr. Greenberg, you had a question?
So I just want to be clear. So an ambulance company, what is the basis for, to get subsidies from the town? And you said there's a maximum that they can give?
Now, there are two different issues.
Yes, no, I know, but I want to know.
So when I was first, the provision under which the squads are receiving monies now is a state statute that allows municipalities or counties to make contributions to EMS or ambulance squads. And the initial limit's up to 70, and then you can go up to 35 for good cause. That's one issue. Now, with respect to the going out to bid, you specify the bid, and as part of this bid package, it asks the respondents if in fact they would need any type of, you can call it a subscription fee, any type of payment, a subsidy from the town, that basically the intent is to see if there's a difference to cover the costs that they're not able to collect. And typically those costs are co-pays and or deductibles. You cannot ask them not to bill for that, but based upon their experience, my sense is that these organizations know that there's a difference between what they're actually able to collect and what they do collect. So what they'll do is approximate what that cost is and indicate to the town that is the difference, that is the subsidy that we need. But you have to be careful, because and you can't rely on this OIG opinion either, because it's very clear. It says it stands on its own, it can't be relied on for any other purpose. You can't. But when you look at the opinion, what they were concerned about was the fact that the town was actually making the payment. And so they were saying was that incentive, the payment incentive to that provider to provide the service. And so what you have to look at is the amount of that subsidy. Does that equate? I'll call it a fudge factor, but do you look at it? Does that equate approximately what the cost is for the inability of the provider to not being able to collect from folks who may not have insurance, who may be uninsured, underinsured, or that deductible? And the provider has to justify that, because they know, their records and whoever does it. So that's permitted as long as there's that analysis. And again, what has to happen is, let's say to the extent that the provider cannot collect, they make a determination based upon the patient's ability or inability to pay. But that's something that they do. But that type of subsidies, it's under that restricted purview, is permitted. But I'll tell you, the OIG opinion says that, there were concerns about those subsidy payments, but they said very specifically, under these facts, in this instance, from what we were told, we don't think it's a violation. So the fact that when municipalities make those payments, the OIG is concerned about that, because how do you monitor? It's very difficult to monitor what that spread is, right, and what the inability to collect. So they have more concern with the monies actually going to the providers than the fact that a provider will come in and say, look, we don't need the subsidy. And again, I think in that instance, it may be for myriad of reasons. Maybe because they have enough volume where it doesn't impact that particular provider. But they still can't just magically waive it and say, we're not going to collect it. They have to make the effort to collect it. And then they have to look at each of those patients and say, does this patient have the ability or inability to pay? And then they make it based upon that determination. But again, that's on them. What we don't require, and what we did not require in these specs, is that they not, try to collect the deductible or the copay, that they don't collect, or if someone's uninsured or underinsured, because the law doesn't allow you to do that.
So that's my question. So the OIGs, do we have one specific to Old Bridge? Is
No.
there-
No,
Are we required to have? it?
no. Again, it's Office of Inspector General. This was an opinion that they put out, and then when you read it, it's very clear. It's clear that it can't be relied upon by anybody else. It's for this particular, things are redacted. It makes it very clear based upon these facts. So what had happened because of this payment structure, this particular provider asked for the advisory opinion. And again, Manchu could probably talk to this better than I, but I know there's conversations with Alert and Robert Wood Johnson about the fact that they have to bill and they cannot not bill, and that's the position that we're taking. And again, as a matter of fact, that's the position we took with OB Thames. There's a provision in their or a memorandum of understanding saying that they would build in accordance with state and federal regulations, and they're going to be held to the same standard.
That's an important point, that all providers are held to the same standard of billing practices. It doesn't change.
So Old Bridge Thames now is billing the same, but if you don't have insurance, they're not expecting payment. Is that how it is now?
I'm not
I'm
sure
not
what
gonna
OB
speak
Thames
for them.
does.
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak.
Okay.
We're not at the public portion yet.
Okay, sorry. So basically, another thing that I want to, what is the town's obligation on how much to give to an entity? What is that based on? The state statute and federal law? Is it medical law?
The monies that they're currently receiving that we give out is based upon state statute. The monies that we are currently giving out is based upon state statute. It's 40:5-2. Those are the contributions that are being made.
Please, we'll get to the public portion in a couple of minutes, okay? Thank you.
And is there so there's a limit to that?
Under that statute, there is.
Okay.
Any other
Yes.
questions from council? We go to the public. Mrs. Zohar?
Yeah, does that state statute, does it apply to just volunteers only?
No.
Or
It applies to any duly incorporated first aid and emergency or volunteer ambulance or rescue squad association. Doesn't have to be volunteers.
Mark, just to clarify that, if that statute doesn't apply to OB Thames, then what are the bases?
I don't know. That's the basis upon, since I've been here, that's the basis upon which we
Then-
utilize to make the payment.
You have to go out for bid then in that case.
Right. That is the basis that we've utilized every year since I've been here to make the payment. That's it. There's no other thing, there's no other provision with respect to that.
Mrs. Dungy?
Just would like to, another clarification. I am very confused. If they could make their payments, then that would not be a problem?
I don't think we would have been here if they had not demanded additional money, right? We've been dealing with it. If you look at it this year, last year, we gave them $60,000 initial allocation. Then there was a request for additional $15,000. This year, we paid them $60,000. There's an additional allocation there's additional request for $30,000 that you council approved through the emergency appropriation adoption, that we're gonna have to raise that in next year's budget. So we're gonna have to raise that $30,000 plus $60,000 or more. And even with $30,000, there was a promise to reimburse township for the lease payments. And in November, I think we met again, committee met again. We met with OB Thames, and they indicated that they cannot make those payments because they have difficulty making payrolls.
So the answer basically is yes. If they could make their payments, then everything would be okay.
Most likely, if we were staying with the initial payments and they were paying back their payments, I don't think we would have been sitting here having this conversation.
Okay, thank you. You answered my question.
Any other questions from the council to administration before we go to the public? No? Okay. We have a bunch of folks that signed up.
Barbara York.
You can sit too if you want, it's up to you. Okay,
Barbara, that might be off. You might have to put it on.
but just tap,
Me now?
I think it's on now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one, you can't pay your bill or they screw up your bill. They threaten you with collection agencies. I know. I've been
Barbara, I don't know if the volume's up on that, I'm sorry. I know you're struggling with your voice, but it is up? Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure everybody can.
No, I've been there with my husband. So that's bull. He's a bean counter. All he's worried about is the next budget. The hell with the public. The hell with their bill. All he's worried about. He screwed up contracts. He cut everybody. Now he's looking to cut the first aid squads. Enough already. We're paying taxes. We deserve a commitment. And if it means we may have to pay 10 cents more, it's my life, it's my kid's life, and it's your life.
Laura Miskowski.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
When my son, proud mom of a volunteer firefighter and EMT, can you hear me now?
No.
Son?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Hi. When my son Daniel brought this to my attention a few weeks ago, the first thing that came to my mind was why. I remember a year ago, not even in March, we all came together as a community to honor our first responders. I'm sure you all recall that with the mayor, the paid, and also our volunteer men and women. We were very proud of them. We're proud of them now. I'd rather be standing here honoring them through their hard work and all of their commitment, instead of standing here wondering the fate of our squad. I just hope that you do hear what we have to say, that we keep what we know that works now. I understand the problems we're having financially. I get it. Maybe we can make it work, give them another opportunity. Maybe their budget is unrealistic, considering how big Old Bridge is. But look back, we were proud of them then, we honored them. Let's do it now. Let's not do this to them. Let's not make their efforts seem not important. I would appreciate that. Also, we have here a young fellow who would love to be a part of the first aid or a first responder in Old Bridge. We want to give him that opportunity too. So let's work together, the community. I remember when Mr. Mayor was also with me during a very special event to our volunteer firefighters, and again, one is an EMT. He was there to honor those proudly, and I know he remembers that, so thank you, sir. But again, let's just think about them, and let's try and make it work. Let's don't decide tonight. Let's see what we can do to keep Old Bridge together as a community. And we know what works now. We don't know if it's going to work with someone else in charge. Thank you.
Dawn Lugo. Dawn Lugo.
Hello. I'm a life member of Old Bridge Red and White First Aid Squad. I've been there. I've seen multi-care come in. We actually had a joke we called them multi-scare. We all know. Because there was times where they could not cover us. and you also paid to have them cover us. Then it got to the point where they couldn't. The squads had to come back in again and cover the areas. So it doesn't work, okay? I've seen it. We've been there. And you just, you know, you need to, there's plenty of people in this town that volunteer, and probably the problem you're having is because we're growing so fast. I mean, I've lived here in Old Bridge. There's streets that now have developments after developments after developments on them, and how do you expect them to cover them? You know, we need to grow as a squad itself, but how are you going to when nobody wants to volunteer? And that seems to be the problem. But to have a paid service come in, you know, I mean, I'm going to get a bill, and like she said, you know, what if you can't pay that bill? They don't care. They'll get a finance company to come after you. They'll put a lien on your house. They don't look at it that way. They don't care. So if you're going to have this bid come out for a paid service, or, you know, them to come in, and then they're going to bill your insurance company, now you're making the insurance go up. We pay enough for insurance. It's ridiculous. You pay to go to work to pay for the insurance companies. Now, same thing. So, you know, it doesn't work. Been there, I've seen it. It just doesn't work. You need to keep your squads, keep them where they are. They do a great job. I mean, my husband's a volunteer fire department. He's a life member as well. The paid service, the volunteers work. Paid services don't. Been there.
Tony Pischetti.
Good evening. Okay, let's not pretend that we're working in a vacuum, because it was the township that helped create Old Bridge Thames to begin with, right? Because there was an issue, right? So my major concern here is that, no, first, let me just say this. 6 minutes. Congratulations. You guys do a wonderful job for our town. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. There obviously is a financial issue, but it's been going on for a while. And, you know, to me, it's a public relations issue. You know, you saw there was an issue, and Hamachu, I understand what you do, and that's what you do, that you are a bean counter. You watch the money. You watch all the pennies and dollars. That's your job, and that's what you do. I understand that. But we got something else going on in town, which is not your domain. That's more the mayor's domain and the council. You know, you have an organization that was created in town to fill a gap because there was a problem. Now, obviously, there's a financial issue somewhere. And I understand, see, that the town is a government agency, and the OB Thames is a private entity, so there has to be like a separation. But, you know, I'm saying that you should not forget where everything came from, right? And you have EMT people, which do an excellent job, you know, trying to run a business, which is a different animal, you know? So, you know, we have experts in town. We have people that are financial experts that could come alongside and help, instead of saying, oh, well, you know, you're spending too much money, go out to bid and we'll just get rid of you and we'll write the bid so you can't bid. You know, so what I'm saying is that this council, in my opinion, should table the motion and let's do a study and find out what's going on. Now, I understand the financial issue, the fiduciary responsibility that the town has, but the other EMT squads have some money. Now, maybe they can kick in some money, help them out through this period, and then we could come alongside and help them figure out what the issue is, instead of just getting rid of our neighbors. You know, see, to me, this is the same issue that this town has had for a long, long time. We don't treat each other like neighbors. We treat people like you're a disruption of my day. And I don't like that. And I'd like to see that changed. So it could be changed. Let's start right now. Let's table the motion. Let's take a real hard look at what's going on, try to help solve the issue instead of saying, you know, let's just get rid of OB Thames. It's just not fair. Thank you.
John Murphy.
Hi, I'm John Murphy. Here I've been living, but anyway, M4B Pine Tree Boulevard, Albridge, New Jersey. I have some concerns. I have very many concerns about, I saw a lot of stuff I was very concerned about up here. It almost looked like they're mismanaged. I don't want to make anything, but nobody bothered saying they're mismanaged. So I don't know if they're mismanaged unless nobody has the gall to say that. But there's a bunch of things that just aren't known yet. You have, are the volunteers taking care of the weekends or not? Have anybody spoken to them? I hear it's in the contract, but nobody knows. How many paid employees are they going to take on? They said up to 10, but now they're not sure of that. And there's just too many questions. And why does red and white and green and white Gillette Ambulance Squad have a great abundance, but the Old Bridge Thames are in, from what I hear, a deficit? Now listen, what I would like to do, and this is in no way do I feel that I am going to come back and say Old Bridge Thames is the company that has to be there. I think there's many, many unanswered questions. I've watched, the board is confused. If I somehow find out this had something to do with the election, and that's why you pushed it off to this time, it's kind of weird that it just popped up in November, but that's no longer going to happen. This new council, myself and 3 others and him here, it's going to be a different type of council. And we're going to work together, and if this board has any respect for anybody, they will table this tonight. Thank you.
David Merwin.
David Merwin, 842 Summerfield Avenue, Lawrence Harbor. First, let's get the talk about a donation out of the way. All right? If this is a donation under the state statute, then it's his fault. Because for 20 years, I have been telling him that it is a Medicare subsidy. You've been in meetings when I've had that argument with him. He refuses to accept that. When we went into this business, I believe it was 11 years ago, we knew what we were getting into. We knew that we were going to bill our residents, but their insurance companies, but no out-of-pocket expenses. All right? But we soft-billed them. There was never any word of no out-of-pocket expenses. Matter of fact, that word is a real taboo in the OIG's eyes. Very, very taboo. This bid calls for no out-of-pocket expenses. Clearly a violation of the OIG guidelines. Clearly. And I have 5 more if you'd like them. They all go back and say the same thing. 000 just about automatically kicks in the anti-kickback laws of the Medicare fraud. Alert, as far as I know, did not conform to the bid because I don't believe they have a PSAP or a PSD All right? It clearly called for one in the bid. They clearly didn't take any exception. I was going to come up and give the whole history of OB Thames, but there's been so much misinformation that's been given out. Let's go to 2016. Let's go to 2015 about no, there's no lease payments in 2015. We took possession of the ambulances, I believe it was February or March. So when they were looking for payments in January and February, I said, hey, we don't have the ambulances. We're not making no payment. You know? And that's where the first 2 payments that are missing came from. We didn't have the ambulances. We didn't pay for them. And so on. Before the meeting, I spoke to Councilwoman Greenberg-Belli and, or Dr. Greenberg-Belli, I'm sorry. And you had the questions about how did this happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened. In 2013, Mayor Henry realized that there was lapsing coverages on the nights and weekends, and he dutifully took care of it. And he appointed Lisa O'Brien Giuliano as the EMS coordinator. And they came with the 3-rig minimum. Well, since 2013, the volunteers have continually not been able to fulfill all their required, not their required obligations, they're volunteers. You know, it's tough in this day and age to get volunteers. And then when you get them, you can't say, hey, this ain't the old days. You can't say you got to put 7 days a week in. All right? So continually the time built where it got up to be 100 hours a month that we were putting extra ambulances out there. All right? By putting those extra ambulances, sometimes 2 ambulances. And this is like $82 an hour for each ambulance. So it kept building up, building up. You know, this didn't just happen. We write off $1 million in collectibles. And I've sent that to you in the past. We write off $1 million for Medicare, Medicaid, indigent, and township residents. We write off $1 million. And if you had waited for the...
We could just finish up, okay? It was 5 minutes.
Well, I'm going to have to come back because I just have too much. This is too important of a thing. All right? If they had
Those
waited...
are the township rules, though, you know.
If they had waited...
If you could finish up, please. We have a lot of people who want to...
I understand that. I don't think any of them know as much as I do, though. And that's not a pat on my
Mr. Murna,
back.
but you know the council rules, okay?
All right?
I'm not making it up, so.
All right? They would have known that if they had waited for the audit that they ordered. All right? They had their township auditor do an audit on us that we cooperated fully, and that's going to cost probably $10,000 to $15,000. I don't know if any of you know that, but that's what it's going to cost. We probably could have fixed the financial problems of OB Thames instead of getting the damn audit. But that being the point, we don't fall under that $70,000 thing. We fall under
Really got to move on.
Yes, you do, OIG, and every one of those OIG things say that you cannot no-bill the residents.
Okay, thank you.
It makes it illegal.
Nicholas Barrett.
Just a reminder to the public, we have a 5-minute rule in the council. Okay, that's why the time went off, so.
Hey guys, good evening everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Nick Barrett. I live at 1617 Englishtown Road. I'm currently the first lieutenant at Red and White. I'm going to be the captain next year.
Gotta talk into
And-
Yeah, you gotta pick up the mic.
Pick up the
a little
mic,
bit.
please.
Thank you.
I worked for OB Thames before I became a nurse. And what you guys, I understand the financial aspect and that OB-Temps does cost the town money, but going to alert and just, I know EMS, I've been around EMS. You did analyst of alert. Did you talk to Perth Amboy as to why their firefighters are all being trained as EMTs now? Alert is going to get moved out of Perth Amboy because they're having problems with response times. It's a fact. You can look it up. I talk to people who work for Alert, who work at the hospital in Perth Amboy. I know these people. When it comes to the cost of a life, I won't harp about, because everyone here knows that you can't put a cost on a life. But OB-Temps comes in, and no one sees a bill. Just like Red and White, we soft bill. We bill for our services. What insurance doesn't cover, we just write off. It's no big deal. We've had to do that because we don't get enough funding from the township. You can't run an agency off $40,000 a year. It's just not possible. But on behalf of Red and White, we would be okay with you guys cutting the funding, the township funding from Red and White, if you would push it to give to OB-Temps to keep that in. Because at the end of the day, I also care about, your low-income citizen of the town that, is going to end up being in collections because they can't afford a $600 ambulance ride. That's not something we're looking forward to. And I don't think anybody here would want that for their family members, their grandparents, their family, and that's not fair. Not when we've been able to provide such a great service so far without a lapse in coverage. The last lapses in coverage were a couple years ago, and that has all been solved. OB-Temps comes in, and even though I pride myself in being a volunteer, I know that we don't always get trucks out. Life's hard. It's hard to get volunteers. And OB-Temps always comes in, they always cover. Middle of the night, if we call out, they'll get a truck in 15 minutes. You're not going to have that backfill with Alert. They already struggle. If you go and talk to East Brunswick had Alert, and now they have a system that is more similar to our system here. Alert didn't work. So I really hope you guys really did your research on the companies that proposed their bids, because it doesn't seem like it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Brendan Lee.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Lee, 1 Caliber Court. I am representing Cheesewake First Aid as the assistant captain. I've been around in EMS for 6 years now, and I've worked with OB-Temps for about 3. And I've seen everything bad, and I've seen everything good that we've done in this town. And right now, better than any moment that we've had in the past few years, this system is working for this town, for the residents of this town, for all the visitors, and the mutual aid towns that we cover. We help everyone. And I really strongly consider that you guys table this bid, or at least award this bid to OB-Temps, because they're doing a phenomenal job. And they will continue to do that. Thank you.
Aaron Cassay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Old Bridge residents. I spoke last week, and I spoke about how I volunteered in this town for over 10 years. In this time I have been involved in EMS in Old Bridge, I have also worked for many other agencies. One thing that I can say about those other agencies is nothing is quite like Old Bridge. Sorry, I had to write it down because otherwise I ramble. The care that citizens receive comes from people who are truly passionate about helping the people. And as you can see by the people sitting beside me and behind me and next to me, our efforts in the last 12 days show that we truly are passionate. Someone very close to me once said to never vote on something until you're fully informed, because your vote has the chance to affect others' lives. Just as you wouldn't expect me to come up there and make decisions on things that I am not educated on, I expect you to make a fully educated decision on this. If you can honestly say to yourself that you feel you are making the best decision for the Township of Old Bridge, then go ahead and do so. But the way the bid was written was not the best way. As mentioned last week, historically, OB Temps has been on the road 7 days a week. This bid is only calling for 5 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And although it does say that the contractor will supplement what the volunteers cannot, it does not give an accurate picture of EMS in this town. I'm not going to talk bad about any of the other contractors, but they may not know what they're getting themselves into. So I ask you again, what would your backup plan be? If OB Temps folds, you cannot fall back on us. A few months ago, you met with every volunteer squad and OB Temps. You told us, I'm the captain of Lawrence Harbor, so I know that you told us this, that if we could not perform, our money would be taken away, or the amount that we got would be lowered. You told OB Temps that the money would be reallocated to OB Temps from the non-performing squads. What happened to that plan? What changed in the last few months? Why are we in such a rush? Not one squad argued with that. This plan was made after a failure of a first call policy, which failed, partially because we weren't being dispatched correctly. We submitted multiple complaints, which went unheard. You have 5 years of numbers to see where the problem is, and it is not with OB Temps. What I ask you now is that you make a fully informed decision. We are not asking you to not award a bid. We understand that financially that may be something you have to do, but we want you to take time and come up with a bid that fits our town, not one that was copy and pasted from Hillsborough. Your goal, my goal, the mayor's goal, the police department's goal is public safety. And I'm always a very polite person. I really am. To my patients, to people who aren't polite to me, that's just who I am. The chief said something that really struck me, that he said that he was concerned about the ability of OB Temps to care, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make eye contact with you, to care for the residents.
Hold on a minute. I know this is my part.
Who said that? Take the,
You said,
Who said that? When did I say that?
she asked you
Oh.
if it was monetary.
Hold on.
Am I allowed to respond?
Corrected that, right?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Now listen next time. Before we start putting words
Is this, I'm sorry, is this allowed to happen?
Hold on. Hold on.
I'm just wondering if this is allowed to happen.
Just please, let's please finish. He's a member of the administration, just as Mayor
Okay.
Henry is and Himanshu Shah. Let's please just finish, please.
I apologize.
That's okay. Let's just,
Maybe I misunderstood him.
okay. And the chief clarified. No, the chief clarified. That wasn't what was said, so
I
let's
can
just
go
move
on about the issues that we've had with the police department. Okay, well, I'll stop here. I'm being yelled at. Okay.
Okay.
Lisa O'Brien, Giuliano.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa O'Brien Giuliano. I am the EMS coordinator for Old Bridge Township, the volunteer EMS coordinator for Old Bridge Township. I was called 5 years ago by Mayor Henry because he came into work one morning and there was no volunteer squads on the road in the evening. There was not an ambulance to be found. He asked me to come in and fix the system, which I did. There has not been any lapse in coverage in this town. OB Temps fills gaps. We don't create them. I'd like to know if there is any public safety issue with OB Temps. Thank you. I am in the business of filling gaps. Tonight at 5:15, I got a phone call that a squad couldn't come in, and OB Temps stayed until 7:30. 2 o'clock in the morning last week, or I'm sorry, 3:42 in the morning, I got a phone call. There wasn't a squad on the road. By 4 o'clock, OB Thames had a squad on the road. BLS 1 was on the road. You talk about subsidies. OB Thames charges a subsidy so that the townships don't have any out-of-pocket, the township residents don't have any out-of-pocket expenses. We make the 3 mandatory collection efforts that we have to, but if the people have huge deductibles and copays, OB Thames does not go after them. We don't take their money. There is no out-of-pocket expenses because that's what the mayor asked for. So now, a financial problem, we've never had what Alert is going to do and collect the copays and the deductibles. For some residents, that could be $850. So you want to know why we're in a financial position that we're in? We have increased our coverage amounts exponentially. We're now out there 7 days a week, 3 trucks a day during the daytime, and we fill in every gap. Holidays, we have 2 trucks out there. This weekend, we had 2 trucks out there. We do our best to fill in the gaps to provide public safety. I've been doing this for 36 years in this town as a volunteer. I've been doing this for 5 years, coordinating to make sure that every resident has that response time. And OB Thames response time through EMS charts and image trend is 6.35 minutes. I can provide that data. So council tonight, if you want to vote so the residents pay their out-of-pocket expenses in terms of copays and, excuse me, I'm sick, and their deductibles, that's your choice. But that subsidy goes to the people that have deductibles that are, my son works for Toys R Us. His deductible would be the full ambulance payment because his deductible is $5,000. So that's what my son would have to pay if Alert came to my home. He's getting married. I don't want him to have that kind of a bill. I also ask very nicely, it's $250 for you to get an OIG opinion on what subsidy OB Thames could charge. Because according to the Medicare guidelines, we could ask for the out-of-pocket expenses that we have, the things we write off, which is $884,000. We ask for $170 because the bid was written that we had to backfill every time there was a call. We had to provide trucks for every community service event. That cost a lot of money. We are willing to sit with the town and discuss exactly what it would cost. We have an audit coming back. I would love to see the audit. If there's things that we can change for our company, I certainly will. But my care is only because 5 years ago when I needed to wait for an ambulance for my dying mother, the ambulance was there in 7 minutes because everybody knew who I was. My resident, my neighbor had a similar issue, and I sat there for 42 minutes while she seized because there was no ambulance 5 years ago. I came, I changed it, I wrote the system. I could, at his direction, did it. You never came to me to ask about input on a bid. It's my system, and it works damn well. And I don't want... Somebody asked me today why I don't take a salary. I don't take a salary because OB Thames needs the money. I work very hard to make sure that public safety is the #1 priority in Old Bridge. And I don't want to see you squabble over a subsidy that you pay to this town, to this OB Thames, and bill these residents for any deductibles or copays. That's not fair. Clearly you don't have all the information. I'm asking nicely, table it until you do. Meet with us. I'd be happy to meet with all 9 of you. Get the information. And if you decide then that the residents should pay their copays and their deductibles, please vote on it if you don't think our system works. But it works. And if money is the object, I had a whole speech written. I didn't even do it. I spoke from my heart. If money's the object, like the chief said, there's no price on my life or the life of my family or any neighbor or any resident of this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Jocelyn. David Jocelyn.
My name is Dave Jocelyn. I'm currently at 100 Ticetown Road. Now, it came to me over Facebook, and I've got a lifelong, as long as I've lived in Old Bridge, volunteered, okay? I've not been the best, not been the worst, okay? But I put my time in, just like the rest of these people have. Now, I have seen the paid come in and the paid go. Alert, every company that's been in this town, they've come in, not performed. They give you promises, you get bid specs, you do what you got to do, they go away. You rely on the volunteers. You took on OB Thames. OB Thames was created to make sure that there's ambulance crews when it's needed. Dave Merwin, Lisa O'Brien, and a few others created the system to make it work for the Old Bridge residents. What Lisa O'Brien has done, Giuliano, excuse me, I don't want to misrepresent, what she has done has been heart-filled. She does nothing except from the heart. Dave Merwin, the same way. He's a little bit tough, but he does it from the heart. What he puts together, you can bank on. Okay. What has been done with these Old Bridge residents and some of the information that some of your council members don't know. To rush to a judgment, to vote on this tonight, is a miscarriage of justice for the Old Bridge residents. One thing I saw back years ago when Governor Christie was running for office, he took away the volunteer money for funds for the training. There was an opportunity that I missed. When Governor Christie was running for office, I was on campaign with him. I quit 3 months before his election because I saw Governor Corzine took money away from training, away from volunteers. There was no money that he was going to have that was going to get him reelected. He was defeating himself. These residents, OB Thames, people remember. You do them wrong, it's going to be regretful. With the amount of time it took for Republicans to have control and power in this town, you rush to judgment with this, people going to remember, okay? And it's not worth what you're going to do if you vote to go along with these. And I can tell you, the company you hire on will be gone within a year and a half because they just cannot and will not sustain themselves. What Lisa Giuliano O'Brien, excuse me, I'm doing it again. What she put together, you can't top. You work with her, she'll work with you, and like she said, she does it for free. And I know there's people who know the governor does, or president does for free, and the mayor does for free, whatever. You know what? If you rush a judgment with this vote, I've been a Republican all my life and would probably still vote Republican all my life, but it's a big mistake for the Republican Party if you rush this vote. And you know what? I care about the residents of this town. I care about the parties. I care about everything that happens in this town. That's why I'm still here, okay? This is not a good judgment call, and I hope and pray that you do not push this through. Before you do, Dave and Lisa justice and what they have done for this town. If you bypass them and rush your judgment with this vote, it's on you.
Rich Bruno.
I'm here just as a resident who have, over the last 5 years, witnessed the way the Old Bridge Thames operate. I have a 90-year young mother who in the last 5 years has been in the hospital probably 10 times, probably needed an ambulance 7 or 8 of those times. Oh, and by the way, 6 minutes is good because they've hit 5 minutes a few times, by the way. I just want to say that there's something to be said for when someone's in an emergency situation and a friend is a first responder, a neighbor is a first responder, an acquaintance is a first responder, especially with seniors. It just gives them a little more feeling of safety and everything is going to be all right and calming them. Usually seniors are in crisis situations, and my mom being Sicilian, is kind of hard-headed. So even though she's having trouble breathing and she really needs to go to the hospital, she's saying she's not going to the hospital. So having someone that's able to reach out and they know her son or they know her, or they're a neighbor, it's a face she recognizes, it makes a big difference. And I know all about, I was in business a long time, so I know about budgets and this, you know, I understand about the money, but there's a lot to be said about the little things. And I just wanted to bring that out to everybody. I hope you consider that. And whatever you have to do, but there's a lot more to be said than just $175,000. Thank you.
Frank Cipriano.
Hi. I've had the experience to know the EMT for the last 8 out of 9 years. My wife, she had brain and lung cancer, and she would have seizures most of the times. And if she didn't get a response within a few minutes, she would have been dead. And with Lisa being my neighbor, she was there all the time, and the ambulance would come up within 5 minutes. Any other ambulance service, it could be 15, 20 minutes, who knows? And what I want to say is that I thank the EMT for giving my wife an extra 8 years. Without them, it wouldn't have happened. Another thing, they say that the prices go up every year. Every year we get taxed. I've been getting taxed for the last 35 years. Every year, almost. So what's the big difference? You know, people have a job, they want a raise every year. They get a raise. This is what happens. Things happen. So that's all I have to say.
Scott Makowski.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, police chief, residents of Old Bridge, public safety, EMS. I'm here as a father. My son is an EMS first responder, and he's also a volunteer fireman, but this is not about that. I believe in sense of community. I've volunteered my entire life. I've dedicated my life to the citizens of New Jersey and also citizens abroad, you know, that live in abroad. And I understand that we do have a fiscal responsibility. We need to be fiscally conservative. I've lived in this town through the good and the bad, where there was spending like crazy. There was no solutions. You know, we go back and forth. But one thing we need to focus on is a community. And you have people in this community with a vested interest, just like our police department. They know us. They want to go out there and do community policing. They want us to trust the police department, the fire department, everybody else. We come out, we come together as a community. I understand. I've done my research. I found out about this in November. I've been to 5 different municipalities, and not one that's went to this system is happy with it. It's cost them more money. People are moving out of those communities because they can't afford to pay the supplemental fees that come along with that. Old Bridge has grown, and I'm sure we have lots of people in this room that have been Old Bridge residents for quite a long time, but we've grown so much, and the coverage is tremendous. You know, when I moved in, there was like 75 police. Now there's 100 and something. We still need more. But it's budgets, it's budgets, it's budgets. But it's community. And Mr. Roselli, you know, everything you talked about, I researched, I understand. That was great. You know, we're stuck in the middle. We have an obligation by law. We have these other obligations. But as a community, my concern is that this contract went out to bid, it seemed like in the middle of the night. And I don't care about Republican, Democrat, I don't care. I'm an Old Bridge resident, so I care about the people of Old Bridge. So what we need to do is, maybe there could have been a forum or a quorum where we could have came together before, and this could have came out, and residents would have been more aware of what was going on, and we could have sat down with all the parties involved. I'm all about public safety, as the police chief said, and I didn't take that the wrong way. He made a great point. You can never put a price on a life. Doesn't matter. You're talking about bringing Amazon into Old Bridge. You know, we're going to need more police just for, I can't understand sometimes how we don't take a step back. And Mayor and everybody else, I mean, you have a job to do. You are the accountant. That's what you do. You crunch numbers. You're the mayor. You're the face of Old Bridge. You're the police chief. Everybody's bidding for money. We're all contending for the same thing. But let's not talk about being this great community and how we care about our own residents when we can't come together in some sort of forum to discuss what's best for us. I'm telling you, if this passes and this bid goes out, there's people that are paying an absorbent amount of tax right now. And then if they don't have insurance, because I heard somebody say, well, everybody's got insurance. That's not true. That is not true. That's not an accurate statement. And I just want you to think about it. It may not affect me in Machaponack Hills, or it may not affect me living in some big development where my tax is $15,000 a year. But we have other residents in this town that are very indigent. It's going to happen. We are going to lose people. So I implore you, let's table this and come back another day. And I want to say great job to everybody in the room. These people that are up here, you know, they're not tooting their horns. They're passionate about what they do. Everybody's passionate about what they do. And I commend you as a board for taking your time out and listening to all this rhetoric sometimes. But thank you very much and happy holidays.
Karen Bonadies.
Hi, my name is Karen Bonadies. I live at 19 Lindsay Circle in Old Bridge. And I certainly can't say enough about the EMS in this town. I don't know enough about it, but after listening tonight, I would certainly like to see this tabled because I think it certainly needs a lot more discussion. I would also like to thank everybody that's sitting up there and wish you all a happy holiday. I think you all do a tremendous job, including our mayor. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Alan Rosenkrantz, who won't be sitting up there in the next few months, but he taught me a lot, and he told me to come to these meetings because it's very important for all of us. Table this motion tonight, please.
Sean Patterson.
Good evening, everyone.
just want to start by saying I saw a couple slides before comparing alert ambulance with the township of Brick and Lakewood. I was a police dispatcher for Brick and Lakewood. I also worked for alert ambulance. Alert has not been in Brick Township for at least 10 years. They were replaced by Township EMS. Alert was never, ever emergency services in Lakewood. They neither do the backup. Brick, Lakewood, and Toms River all cover each other. So as we heard already, there's been some misinformation pertaining to the bid, the misinformation on the slides. Alert will bill, they will bankrupt this town, and people will die. Their average response time is nowhere near 6 minutes. Average time for them, for a true emergency, when I had worked there, was minimum 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Those had ambulances out of town. For the short time they were in Brick, the nearest ambulance was in Neptune, which is about 25 minutes, half hour away. Then the dispatchers have to scramble to figure out, oh, now we need a closer truck because we screwed up, which happened daily. All the times I've been at Raritan Bay Medical Center, I have never once seen an alert ambulance staged there. They'll come in with a patient just like we do. We drop off, they're picking up someone. That's where they make their money, is ambulance transport, picking up from hospital and nursing homes. And they will divert an emergency ambulance from this town to make more money. So obviously, a lot more has to be done about this. That is not the company you guys want. All right, thank you.
So that's the list of people that signed up tonight. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet that would like to speak? I see a hand up in the back, and then, sir, I'll get to you. Somebody had their hand up over here? Evening.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Orsicato. I'm also I don't work for the township, but I work in this township. I just want to ask one question. Everybody who works for OB Thames, please stand up. I want to let you know, at least every single one of these people have helped my father. My father is very sick, and they have come to his aid every time, under 6 minutes. And to see them go, and you could see their faces, would destroy our town. They are our faces here. They save our lives out here. When we need them, they are there. When we need them, they are there for us. I don't want to see any single one of them lose their job because of this. It's just not fair. I hope you guys table this decision and make sure you realize what you're going to do. Because these people are amazing people. They know their job. Let them do their job. Lisa, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. All those phone calls. You guys have saved my father's lives, and I should be up here applauding you. And I thank you. Just look at these people. Look at them. Table this decision. Do your research. That's all we're asking for. We don't want you to make harsh decisions on them. Just listen to us. That's all I have to say.
He's got his hand up first. I'll go to you. Yeah. Whatever you want. Sit or stand. It's your call. Just push the mic up a little bit so people can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Brian Murphy, lifelong resident of Madison Township / Olbridge Township. A few things I wanted to say tonight, but then I learned a couple of things tonight, which was good, because if you think I'm going to talk about EMS or the legal portion of this. I'm not, because I know nothing about it. But what I did learn from this was, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mayor Henry and Mr. Shah, I believe you said you have an obligation to the residents of Old Bridge to provide safety and health care to the lowest bidder? Does that make sense? Safety, health care, lowest bidder. Those things to me just don't make sense putting them together. Another thing I learned was that OB-10's response time is approximately 6 to 7 minutes. Then this alert was committed to 6 minutes. I don't know what committed means.
That
Hang on,
way,
just
just a little bit.
move away a little bit
Move
now.
it back a
Okay.
little
Yeah.
bit.
I really don't know what committed means. And Mr. Rosencrantz had a great question. He asked, what is the penalty to alert if they don't meet that 6 minutes? I don't think it's a penalty to alert. I think it's a penalty to us if they don't meet 6 minutes. A big penalty. I really hope this is not about the money. Can we cut corners somewhere else? I know this town, lifelong residents, they spend willy-nilly here. So there's somewhere else to cut corners, not here. Now I want to get into what they've done for my family. Luckily, in the last 5 years, I've had to use them twice. The first time was about 5 years ago. I was billed $800 with a $10,000 deductible, was not obligated to pay it. Just recently, with my son, I believe I checked my EOB and my insurance, it was $975. Don't forget, I have a $10,000 deductible. Haven't gotten the bill yet, and I really hope I don't have to pay that, because if I have to take a $1,000 ambulance ride, someone's not getting paid. That's for sure. Now, OBT or OB-TEMS, correct me if I'm wrong, the OB stands for Old Bridge. From what I hear from these people behind me, this is a pride thing. Again, lifelong resident. My father and my brother, who's sitting back there, were volunteer firemen for South Old Bridge Fire Company Engine 2 back in the Stone Age. It was South Old Bridge Fire Department. It wasn't Apex Fire Department. It wasn't Harvey's Fire Department. It was South Old Bridge. My brother was just telling me a story the other day about this. And again, back in the Stone Age, there was a fire right across the street from the firehouse. And my father said, look, that's a fire. That's smoke from a fire. So they ran over there, and my brother was going, but that's Cheesequake. That's not us. My father's like, it's a fire. So they went, and they took care of the fire. Supposedly my father got in trouble for that. It was thrown out, but I mean, how ridiculous is that? This is Old Bridge, it's a pride thing. I'm not asking this council to table this. I'm asking this council to award this bid to OB-TEMS. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Donna Wilson, 256 Shoreland Circle in the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge. And I actually hadn't intended to come tonight. I haven't had a chance to go through the numbers, and what I'm here is more, I guess, an emotional appeal. I'm not a member of the First Aid Squad of Old Bridge Thames, but I have been saved by them twice. They saved my life twice in 1 year. Within a few moments of the crisis happening, they were at my house. I was at Robert Wood Johnson and in surgery within 40 minutes of my phone call. 40 minutes. I might not have made it had I had to wait 10 minutes for them to get there. Same thing happened within the same year. This works. Everyone was impressed. The hospital was impressed. Please think this through and see if there's a way to preserve what's taken so long to build for the people of Old Bridge. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't been heard would like to speak? Anybody else who hasn't been heard? You've been heard.
Heard loud and clear, by the way. Mark Rizzoli, Old Bridge resident and Ward 4 council-elect. I just like to say I really believe this should be tabled this evening. There's a lot more questions than answers. You know, I always like to say I like to hear the facts, not fiction. And we could do all the slide presentations we want, but the reality is I like having an opportunity to sit down with Lisa, maybe work this out, talk to other towns who hired Alert, and let's get the facts before we jump into the major decision like this. This is another thing that's being fast-tracked with a special council meeting. You know, when something's fast-tracked, it's usually not good. And I can tell you, I was a Jersey detective. I was a cop for 26 years, recently retired. I have so much respect for EMTs. You've picked me up off the street many occasions. So I think, it may not have been you, but it's definitely been your profession. So I think the reason why you elected a new council, because you wanted a council that's going to be bipartisan and make the decision best for the residents of Old Bridge. Council people on the way out should not be voting on a contract, and that's the way I feel. I'm here to represent you, the people. Table this, and let's work it out. Let's get all the facts.
Anybody else who has not been heard? Mr. Merwin, you want to finish it up?
Yes.
Just happens to have the mic.
Clock's ticking, Dave.
I'll stand up. How's that?
You can sit with that.
You know, that's the old, what's that old adage? Liars figure, figures lie. All right. What those numbers up there don't show, he likes to put up increase from previous years 67.5%. That's because we went from 5 days a week to ambulances to 3 ambulances, and the town increased our subsidy. See, I used the right word. And I don't care what he uses because he's wrong. All right? And then the following year it went up 23%. Again, because now we were doing some weekends. And Mr. Marion, who was a pretty smart guy, said, hey, you know, we got us a deal here. You know, and then it only went up 8%. They weren't being so generous. Then went up 25%. I still don't know where they get 112 and 128 since $90,000 we only received this year. This year. You see, they adding those numbers from the rig payments as something they gave us. All right? They're still telling us we owe it. All right? Now, at the last meeting we had with the chief of police and everybody, he said, put the bill in. Well, we put the bill in for the extra hours that we were above and beyond. We still haven't been paid for it. All right? But here's the thing about this bid. The only successful bidder was OB Thames. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But my understanding of the OIG guidelines is it called for a subsidy, and we asked for the subsidy. A 000 violates the OIG guidelines. Matter of fact, it starts to get into the anti-kickback portion of the OIG guidelines. And that's not to say, you have to understand something. When they're talking about the OIG, that don't mean somebody got a quid pro quo and a couple of bucks in their pocket or something. It just says, hey, you can't do that because you're steering business towards Hackensack Meridian, the local hospital. And I know the mayor wants to build up that local hospital, all right, but not at our expense, all right? Like I said, we're the only ones that really met the thing. So I'm not going to ask you to vote no on awarding this. I'm going to ask you to table it, get some people together that understand the OIG guidelines and everything. We guarantee you that OB Thames will be out there until the next council meeting or until this is resolved. And we'll go from there. But with the information that you've been misinformed about, I don't know how you can make the right decision. And the right decision right now is to table this motion or to vote no. All right? And I don't know what legalities voting no would do, but I know tabling is very much within your purview. So hopefully that's what you do. I want to thank you for being here and have a great night.
Thank you. Okay. There's nobody else that wants to speak, right? From the public. Chief? Sure. Just officially close the public portion. I didn't see any hands. Chief, you want to clarify some points?
Well, yeah, but it's an unrelated matter. I need to apologize to the mayor and the council for that. I know you expect more from me, right, on that outburst before. Aaron, I'm sorry. I apologize. It was, no, hold on. Let me go. I'm having my moment, okay? Relax. All right. I was unprofessional, insincere. I'm above that. It'll never happen again, okay? All right.
Okay, so the public participation has been closed. Move on to the resolution. Do we need to read anything or just read the title? Okay. There's a resolution awarding contract number 2017-57.
Council President, I'd just like to make a statement. As the
I'm
mayor.
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I'll stand up so everybody can see me in the back. This is not about money. I will never put a price tag as a chief, as anyone at council. This is not about money. It's not about.
Excuse me.
And
Mr.
it
Mayor,
better
hold on
not
a
be
second.
political. It better not be a political decision. All I ask of you as a resident of this town, please do not expect me, do not ask me, do not think that I should act outside the law. I have to obey the law. Just like you as residents of this town, you have to obey the laws. And that's all I ask.
Right.
Let me operate this town within the laws. Procurement laws, statutory limit laws. I won't break the laws. Now let me speak, Dave. I didn't interrupt you. Now this is a contract with a business. This is a business. And this business employs a lot of people in this town. And in this room, I love the people in this room for what you do. But that doesn't give me the right to work outside the law. There are businesses in town. We have paving contractors, we have busing contractors, and they all work for the town. They all do work for the town. They provide services to the town, just as OB Thames does. They don't get every contract that they bid on. They don't. Sometimes we have to award to another contractor. Now, Alert is a business in town. The healthcare industry has changed over the last couple of years. We all know that. They all know that. They are a business in town. And maybe it wasn't part of the bid, as Mr. Roselli said. It's not a part of the bid. Really? But in conversations with Alert, they have made a commitment. And I think they're here. They can make that a commitment in public that they would employ everyone who's working for OB Thames, that they would offer a minimum, they would hire everybody from OB Thames. They would offer a minimum of 10 full-time positions to handle Old Bridge, so we would have Old Bridge residents behind the wheel, getting to where they have to go. He's here.
Can we please?
I just got to make sure I'm not out of order.
Yeah. Can we please let the mayor speak? Thank you.
So this is not, and we've been trying to work with OB Thames for years now. Lisa, you know we've always, and we want this to work. I really would rather have it made to work, but I don't know if it can work within the laws that we have to operate under. I don't think it could work. We did try.
Please,
We've
we
been
sat
trying
here for a
years.
couple hours listening. Please,
And I
let's-
think we went above and beyond when we purchased those ambulances. We purchased the ambulance for OB Thames. Would we be having this conversation tonight if those ambulances were purchased in the regular, the regular form that you had, and then they had been repossessed because you didn't make payments on them? Would you operate like that as a business? I don't want to be here tonight. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm forced here to be here as the mayor. I'm Mayor Henry tonight. I'm not Owen Henry that grew up in this town that knows a lot of you. I'm the mayor. I have an office. I have laws I have to go by. I have to abide by them. I have to. And, if our options are very limited here. There's laws that we have to follow. I don't want to be redundant, but please don't ask me to break the law. Please don't do that, because I won't. I won't do it. When we took this town over, it was a disaster. It was a nightmare. Money is not a problem when it comes to safety. So, I don't know what else to say. You can be angry with me. You can be pissed off at me. It's okay. It's okay. I'm a big boy. And I can assure you it's not political. It is definitely not political. This town is not about Republican problems, Democratic problems, it's Old Bridge problems. And Old Bridge, we have a problem. We have a problem. We have a problem. And we're trying to fix it in the best interest of the 68,500 and other people that aren't here tonight. Obviously, everybody in this room have skin in the game, right? A lot of people work for OB Thames. A lot of residents. Or maybe you know somebody. These are decisions that we don't want to make. But that's all. I'll keep quiet. Council, I'd like council comments,
Yep.
John, if you want to come forward and say a few words, if that'd be part of the record, is that okay?
I would not.
Yeah.
Okay, he said no.
Okay. So I read the resolution into record. Does any council people want to be heard?
No, I think we need to make some council comments.
That's what I was going to go to.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Greenberg.
First of all, I want to say public safety is paramount, and there is no dollar cost to a life. The situation is here that we've had a problem that we've been asked to try to solve, and it seems like it's gone on, and I don't know how it's going to get solved. I know the Old Bridge Temps was formed by the volunteers, EMSs in town, and it was a smart way to do it. But what has happened, as you just heard tonight, that a lot of time you can't force a person to volunteer, and we're certainly grateful for all the dedication, for the commitment, for the passion that you have provided for this town, free of charge. Then Old Bridge Temps being formed, it is a business. It is a separate entity. And the unfortunate thing is, the reason why Old Bridge Temps is having a problem is because they have to charge for the extra hours, the hours that are out of service by the volunteers, which we understand that. They should be paid for that. But there's no such structure. We don't know what the hours are going to be from one week to the other. And so the bottom line is, with the volunteers, the Old Bridge Temps have been complaining about the volunteers, that they haven't met their obligation. And so we've tried to resolve that with them dedicating so many hours, and if they didn't, I don't even know, with red and white and green and white, we've heard they've been successful. So I don't know what the communication really is between Old Bridge Temps and the 5 other EMSs to resolve this problem, to make it so it doesn't keep on going on. And so what happens is, when money is allocated to one EMS, I don't even know whether it's legal to take that from that EMS and give it to another EMS. So that is a question. That's what I'm asking. So the problem is this. with these hours and as it's going every month, we don't have a resolution to the problem. We can't even predict where it's going. And so the problem is, when you have a business, even if it's a nonprofit, there are expenses involved with it. So how do you pay for that? And what is the obligation of the town, and how much is the town legally allowed to give that entity? So this
is the council,
what I
the
asked
public
before,
portion
and I'm
is
asking
closed.
it again. So these are the things that I need to know tonight, and I hope I get those answers. But I also, from a business model, what are the things when you realize there was financial problems? I need to know from the business entity, what did you do to try and solve those problems internally, other than expecting the township to give more money, and perhaps they weren't able to do it legally. So then, how is a business solvent if legally the township cannot give you more money to solve this problem? So what I'm saying, it seems like it's unstable. It may be all right for 1 month, but you don't know the answer for the second month. And that's what the problem is. I certainly do not want anyone's jobs to go away. And so when Alert came with the proposal that they were going to hire all the people, that seemed like a solution. But if it's not a guarantee, that's a concern for me. And that is a problem. So these are the things that I would like to know, and then I can actually have more information. So I need to know, as far as a business model, when there was a problem financially, what is the plan to solve it? Then there's a legal aspect, just as we talked about the bidding process. When 4 bids are given, and one is 0, the second one is 0, and the 3. There are 3 zeros and 175. We cannot legally award it to the 175. So then a legal aspect comes into it. So as you can see, this is a very difficult situation, because the fact of the matter, what concerns me most is safety. There is no cost to life, but there are legal parameters also. So trying to get this resolved, and so I don't want to put a Band-Aid on the situation and have the whole problem be back in a month or in 2 months or in 3. And I haven't heard a solution how to rectify that problem. So that is at the point that we are. With all the volunteers that are here tonight, there's a separation between the volunteer EMSs and also from Old Bridge Temps. Old Bridge Temps has the name Old Bridge Temps because you're exclusive. You work in Old Bridge. You don't really go to other towns. And so the problem is, that's how they got the name. And a lot of people before tonight, and I'm sure if residents are listening to this presentation tonight, they thought Old Bridge Temps was funded or maybe even run by the township. So it's a whole separate entity. And how do we provide for it if there's so many, and budget for it and plan for it if there's so many unknowns? And this is the point that we're at tonight. And that's what brought everyone here tonight. If you look also, sadly, just the landscape with everything, and I'll just talk about 2 medical areas in medicine. As far as the pharmacies, and I don't like to see this at all, that the small mom and pop pharmacies have gone by the wayside. But everything is these big companies now, CVS, Rite Aid, whatever. Walmart's in it, Target. So everything is changing, and as much as we want to hold on to these things evolve and they change. Then you look also taking away from medicine, just in the stores. Small stores have gone away because there's stores like Costco, Sam's, and Walmart. These large ambulance companies, like I've learned, they don't have to it's not that they don't have to worry, but they're also from Meridian, Hackensack, and Robert Wood Johnson. So it's a different economic situation for them. But that's what is happening also. Things are changing. All the volunteers in the town, anyone who gave, whether it's a minute, an hour, 5 hours of their time, it's appreciated. But that is also because of people's lifestyle and their commitments to their family and everyone working. That's going away. And that's what's put the pressure on Old Bridge Temps. But with that said, that's not going away, and we don't know how to solve Old Bridge Temp's problem. And so maybe if that could be shared with us, that would be a good solution. I know that the mayor and Chris Marion did sit down, and I would like to also say tonight, I respect everyone in this room and everything they do and say, and that means I respect Mr. Shaw too, and I don't like anyone being called names, just like I wouldn't call anyone else name, or really, you know, they have a job to do. They have a job and they have an obligation. And sometimes we don't like the answers, and I haven't liked the answers sometimes I've gotten either. But I think as a community, I think we have to come together, be rational, see where it's going, how you solve this problem, and why we're here. And I think we're here because we do have laws. And I want to find out accurately what those laws are and what the amount. Because when you are a private company, how do I say to someone else that's a private company in town that has a financial situation, whether it's a doctor's office, one of these walk-in clinics, whatever it may be, how do they not get how do they not come down? Old Bridge Temps is a separate private entity. And so I need to know how these problems are going to be solved and if you're going to be solving. If we have Red and Green that are working in the black, why are they in the black and Old Bridge Temps isn't? So there is a lot of questions, and I don't know whether you can answer them here, if you'll have the opportunity to do that. But that's the problems why we're at this point. It is a financial situation because you just can't pick one entity and support it and not do it for other companies. So even if you're a 501c, which I respect that, it's a nonprofit, there's other ones that are nonprofit, but they're not taking subsidies from the town or whatever that you said. And it's going on, and it's just augmented. And it's augmented, as you've explained to me, and other people have explained to me from Old Bridge Temps, is because the volunteers aren't doing their hours. Well, I think that's going to be, it's the way that things are going now. So where do we go with Old Bridge Temps to solve this problem? What is the obligation of the town, and how does this not have a problem from month to month? We have to be consistent. Just like if you have your business, you want to be consistent. So that is my opinion tonight, and I just, respect everyone that came up tonight and spoke. I just want us to be, calm and reasonable and find a solution, and it's the best solution for the township with keeping in mind that safety is the priority and also abiding the law at the same time. And I just really feel bad that we are in this situation, and no one likes to make these decisions. And I hope that we could come together and find a solution, but I don't know how from month to month we're having this problem. And so I will pass it on if anyone would like to say something and add to that. Thank you, and I'll ask some questions later.
Any other comments from council? Mrs. Walker?
Yes. I agree that the Old Bridge Temps is a separate entity from the volunteers, and, I love volunteers. My husband's been volunteering for 30 years with Cheesequake Fire, and I appreciate everything you do, and they as well have trouble sometimes getting volunteers, and that's the way things are going. And it's unfortunate, but we have to live by rules here on the council, and if we've been told by our attorney that we're violating a state statute by giving too much money to Old Bridge Temps, so I don't know what we're supposed to do when we're violating something, but I was just wondering about as far as green and white and red and white, they bill. I was just wondering how much they pay for their billing companies, percentage-wise, and what Old Bridge Thames pays. How much that is, and how many employees Old Bridge Thames has besides the EMTs. Do they have like clerk staff or whatever like that they could have cut maybe to help it run more efficiently? These are some questions. And also, since the man from Alert is here, I was wondering if I could ask him some questions as well?
No.
No?
No, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they're a prospective bidder, and the decision to award the bid is based upon the responses to the bid specification. It should,
Thank you. Excuse me.
Okay, can I just ask the attorney one more question?
Please.
As far as the state statute, we are violating that, correct? By giving too much money? I'm
Right.
asking the attorney.
look,
Hold on, time out, please. Just, can we have the attorney answer the question? Thank you.
the statute allows for contribution up to $110,000, monetary contribution. 70 and 35, 105. So that's what's permitted under the statute I cited. What's the amount of contribution they're receiving?
Your mic on, Camacho?
The chart indicates that in 2016, they were at $112,000. In 2017, it's potentially and likely $128,000 because we have not received those payments back. And so, they all gets accounted towards. Also, we're paying for the audit that should have been paid for by them. So that's an additional cost really related to OB Thames to the township.
Point of order.
Hold on, time, Mr. Merwin, please. Mr. Merwin, please.
They believe.
Mr. Merwin, please.
Not right, they're lying.
Mr. Merwin,
We're not under that
the
statute.
council, this is council comments time, please. Mrs. Walker, you still have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's our attorney. I have to trust what he tells us.
Where's our attorney? You need to research that before you make. Too many questions, come on.
Please, Mrs. Walker, you have the floor.
Okay, go to someone else. I'll come back to me.
Okay, anybody else in the, Mrs. Dungy?
Yes, first, before I respond to the meeting at hand tonight, I would just like to respond to a person that came up and spoke. I am and was elected by the people of the 3rd Ward in Old Bridge, and my term does not end until December 31st, 2017. So based on that, I have a right to vote. Having said that, I am somewhat confused. This will be my last vote, not to my own choosing, but it will be my last vote. And I am very concerned about the questions that have not been answered, okay? Since I'll be going out of here, I'm going to vote no because I want this to be tabled so everyone can get the answers that they want.
Did you make a motion to table, or are you going to? We have a motion on the floor to table. Do we have a second? We do not have a second? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to table. Roll call on the table.
and just so we're clear, the motion is to table the resolution, not, because Ms. Dundee indicated she was voting no, but I just want to make sure that the motion is a motion to table a resolution that's before the council. Is that correct?
table the resolution?
At this point, I'm voting to table.
Okay, just want to make sure the record's clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Mrs. Dungey?
Before we vote, can I ask a question for the attorney? If we vote to table and we bring it next meeting,
We have a motion and a second. So we have to vote on the motion,
She have
Mrs.
a,
Walker?
well, she have a question on the motion. She's permitted a
Is
question.
it on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering that if it's tabled, it can be discussed at the next meeting. The bid is still.
So just,
I won't be here, something.
Can we please have some decorum, Mr. Murphy? Thank you very much.
so under local public contracts law, you have 60 days within which to award a contract. The bid was open on October 12th, so conceivably you have 60 days from December 12th, so you have 60 days from then. So to the extent that you table it at some point in the future, if you want to, someone can choose to bring it up again. Then you would have to make that motion. Again, if it's within that 60-day, if you want to award it, you'd have to within that 60 days. Or you can get an extension from the four entities who provided responses if you choose to extend that. The other options that are available to council on it is also, there are five other options for rejection of bids as well. That's another vote that you can consider whether, it's depending on what happens with this vote, whether it's here or in the future. But you basically have, to the extent that you table it, you would have then at least initially 60 days to bring it up again if your intent's to award it.
That answer your question?
Or vote on the resolution in some form.
That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a question on the table? We have a motion and a second on the table.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Excuse me?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
No.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Cahill? To table.
No to table.
4 yes, 2 no to table.
Motion passes the table. I get a motion to adjourn, please. A motion to adjourn?
Still make
Can I no, there's motion to adjourn.
That's it.
I'll move the motion. Can I have a
Second.
Second. Roll call on the adjournment.
Mrs. Dungey, to adjourn? Dr. Greenberg? Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Sohar to adjourn? Mrs. Walker? President Cahill?
Yes,
6 yes.
we are adjourned.